Now imagine what this stuff would do for a vise. Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm launching the pre-sale for the vise lining material that I'll eventually include with the twin turbo vise. But since that's something that anyone with any existing vise can make use of, and I think it's really good stuff, I want to make it available as a standalone thing, and it's a little easier just to sell the cork rubber on its own. So I can do that a bit faster than the vise. Now, I believe a vise liner is really important for the performance of the vise, and I wanted to include something with the sale of my vise. So I looked really hard to try to find something that was better than anything on the market. And I believe that I have done that. If you trust me, then you don't need to watch the rest of the video. But if you're skeptical or just curious and want to see why I believe this stuff is so good, better than anything else out there, then watch the rest of this video to see the tests that I did to see how it performs compared to other options. There is a pre-sale purchase link in this video. I'm selling each of these long-term for $30 a piece. Now, one of these is enough to line both sides of most vices. It would have been enough for mine. If you really have a large vise and you have that kind of large back chop attached to the bench, maybe you want to buy two of them. If you're planning on buying the twin turbo vise, you don't need to buy this. I'm including two just to make sure everyone's covered with the purchase of the vise. And for the pre-sale, I'm knocking the price down to $25. So $25 gets you what I believe to be the best vise lining out there for your vise. And it's useful for other things too. I put it on all of my dogs for a non-denting, grippy surface. And it's useful for lots of other things. Now, it is a pre-sale. The lead time is not particularly long. I just need to place a large order and wait for the factory to produce these. So I'm estimating no more than 8 weeks to get these in your hands. So this is the testing setup that I'm using and did use to test a whole bunch of different materials to try to find what was best. I'm not going to show you everything I tested, just kind of 4 or 5 really options for vise lining. The first is no lining, just so we can see how all of these compare to doing nothing. The next is leather. Then we have cheap cork rubber from Amazon, more expensive cork rubber from Benchcrafted, and lastly my option. So we get to see how all of them stack up, and I'll talk a little bit about cost. First, we'll do just the control test, the no lining test. So one part goes here. It's eventually going to squeeze this piece of wood. I use this scale to get a constant pressure so that I know that the clamping pressure for all of them is the same. Then I use the second scale to see how much force it takes to pull it free. It's a very good test to simulate what you want a vise lining to do on a real vise. So the other, no grip, blank, goes on this arm. Now I sandwich a piece of wood, clamp down to 100 pounds, which is a pretty good simulation of a standard clamping pressure that you'd want to use. And we see what it takes to break it free. Between 14 and 15 pounds. Okay, so that's our baseline. No lining, 14, 15 pounds. Okay, take it apart. Next setup for leather. Again, set it up for 100 pounds. Now, leather is kind of the industry standard option before people started coming out with cork rubber options. It is fairly expensive. I think even on sale, the best I was able to find quality leather to do a vise like mine is about $35. So it's got to be real good to be the winner if it's going to be the most expensive. Now, I know people probably have sources for cheaper leather. I get it, but not everyone does, and you could end up paying more than that in a lot of instances. All right, here we go. Testing leather. Looks like between 38 to 40. It held 40 briefly, probably more accurately 38. Okay, so more than double. We've established Putting a lining on your vise is a good idea. You need less clamping pressure to get an equivalent grip, and it's just going to help your vise. So definitely, if you take nothing else from this video, put a lining on your vise. It makes a big difference. Okay, next option, we're going to do cheap cork rubber from Amazon. As I'm doing this, I forget the exact price, $15, $12. I'll put it up on screen, but it's relatively cheap compared to the other options. Okay, 100 pounds once again for the cheap cork rubber. And let's see how it does. Slipping free at 27.28. So definitely better. If you just want to make an improvement for the least amount of money possible, cheap cork rubber from Amazon, not a bad option. Moving on to Bench Crafted, brand name Crubber. Now this is fairly expensive, similar price to mine. It'll cost you $30 for 2 pieces, which is what it would take to do my vise. If you had really big vise, then you'd need more. But essentially $30, and you can do the Bench Crafted option. 100 pounds for Bench Crafted. I don't want to cheat you, Bench Crafted. We'll give you all of it. There you go. And we'll see how it goes. Bench Crafted. $28 to $30, really not any better than the cheap cork rubber. It's interesting. You know, honestly, I've done this before, and Bench Crafted was like 2 to 4 pounds better than the cheap cork rubber. There's some variation in this testing. Obviously, didn't do quite as good. Maybe it's just essentially same as the cheaper stuff. But, And lastly, my stuff. 100 pounds for mine. Not a pound more. No deception. Not a pound less either. I mean, not a pound less. Okay, how does my stuff stack up? $44.45. And that is why I'm selling this stuff. If I hadn't found something that outperformed everything else, I would have just pointed you to the best of these options. But I did, so I am selling it. It's a similar price point. I'm able to sell at a similar price point to the Bench Crafted in leather, but it clearly outperforms both. I've done this test quite a few times. There's always a little bit of variation, but this is always the best stuff. It always outperforms the leather, even when I do my best to really scuff up and make this leather just as grippy as possible, which I did before these tests. This is just, it's just better. So I'm really excited about this. I hope that you can see the value in it. If you aren't going to purchase the twin turbo vise for whatever reason, just build a workbench and put vices on it. I get it. This is a great option. If you are going to purchase twin turbo vise, just hold on, because I am including 2 pieces with the purchase of that vise, like I said. One last point on the toughness and durability of all these materials, and then we'll wrap this video up. Pre-order link in description. So the cheap stuff from Amazon really does feel pretty cheap. It tears with very little effort. Not that this is a really big deal, because it's not really subject to shearing forces on the vise, but still feels kind of chintzy. The Bench Crafted is definitely better. It's thicker and sturdier, and you can tell there's more to it. It takes more effort to tear it, but it still does tear fairly easily. And is anyone surprised that I like mine the best? I mean, it's just super dense. It's very durable stuff. I mean, you can tear it, but it really takes quite a bit of effort to get it to tear. It's really good stuff. That's like I said, why I'm selling it. If I didn't find something great that I could offer at a good price point, I wouldn't be selling anything. So thanks for watching and thanks for supporting me.